That makes sense. Let's see. Can you talk about, this is a great question. I think one of the things that is so unique about Aptera is the fact that we only have 4 main body parts. So can you talk a little bit about how those body parts are actually attached together?
It's beautiful. Like we got a great system here. So essentially the heart of the structure is the floor, right? So that comes up to the firewall, it comes down to the passengers, comes up and goes all the way to almost to the back of the vehicle. And on top of that, we've got the spider. And those 2 pieces self-locate. They've got features that they just click together. The base is sitting in a fixture, the top clicks on, and that gets bonded as the first operation. And the second operation, the body sides come on, and then there's a few pieces that come on to kind of finish the structure, but that's essentially the whole structure, right? And that's kind of what is giving us the ability to have the price point where it is. Because it is essentially a handmade vehicle, right? But we're using labor efficiently enough that we can have artisan labor essentially on our workforce and still make a profit at selling a vehicle at a decent price. So it all comes down to the simplicity of the design, the low number of components, the rapidness of assembly, and we've got a few fixtures for the assembly, but basically the body is self-fixturing. And again, if you look at like a typical car factory and the amount of fixturing and robots and jigs that's necessary, like we don't have a fraction of that. So yeah, it makes it a really enjoyable assembly process. Like it's very nice.
Thank you. Well, so a couple questions. This is interesting. I know when I drove Aptera, one of the things that I was really surprised about is how quiet it was. It was just very quiet. There's a couple questions here about, what about the aerodynamic noise inside while driving? So can we talk a little bit about that? I think there are 1 or 2 questions regarding that.
The closest analogy I've ever seen, I've never actually been in a glider myself, but I've seen videos of guys flying glider planes. And it's the same kind of principle as that. Like there basically is no noise. Like if there's no drag and there's nothing to create turbulence, there's no noise, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. So I mean, it's the very first car that I drove back in the day. All you could hear was the motor noise, just the whine from the motor, and there was no body noise. And because it's a composite structure too, you're not subject to the same. Like on a regular car, if the spot welds don't take or something, you end up with squeaks and rattles and also making all sorts of noises and stuff, and we don't have any of that. Like it's dead quiet. And the natural frequency of the composites too is much lower than a metal, so we absorb a lot of road frequencies. It's beautiful. And crosswinds, you don't even feel them, eh? Like it's just nothing. It just blows right around the car. There was a joke years back when someone was talking about how we're not going to get any flies stuck on the front of the vehicle if you drive through a swarm of flies, except for one. Right on the front of the nose, you'll have 1 fly stuck, like right at the front of the vehicle. Otherwise, it just flows right over the vehicle, right? I mean, it's rain, snow, everything just flows over it. So
that was a question: how weather impacts the aerodynamics specifically.
You don't even feel it. The wind just blows right around it, right? Like it doesn't do anything.
Okay, we have a question from one participant here. Are you really claiming 1,000 miles range? This is unheard of. Yeah, Aptera has the furthest range of any vehicle that's out there today. Can you talk a little bit about how aerodynamics help us to achieve this range? Talk about how it actually empowers this breakthrough.
Well, I mean, it's I don't know how much you can get into the numbers on this, but the 1,000-mile range vehicle, we have the batteries packaged. We have it worked out where mechanically it's possible, right? And this came from running the initial drivetrain system simulations last year. And it was Steve and Chris again. They were like, goodness, guys. They were like, look at the efficiencies we're getting. Like, if we had a battery big enough to do 1,000 miles, like how big would it be? And we did the calculations on that and realized we could actually package that in the vehicle. It was one of those like crazy moments where you're like, is this, wow, okay, well, this is interesting, right? Like and it's actually not that big of a battery. Like we're getting, because of our efficiency, we're getting the same distance on less than half of the same size battery pack in a current electric vehicle, right? So, we get a lot more work from the batteries that we have. But yeah, aerodynamics is a huge part. Lightweight, of course, is a huge part. And it's just science. Like there's no magic here. We're not saying anything's perpetual motion or anything like that. It's just, we do more with the same amount of batteries. We can do a lot more. So, yeah, I know it was incredible to think of 1,000-mile range. Like to me, it's one of the things we did the numbers. We're like, no way. Like, and that was a couple of years back. I think the max range on a car at that point was like 300 or 400 miles. I think that was like the big, right, at that point. I was like, wow. So yeah, very exciting. And I love that. Like for me, like I would never have to charge my car like once a week. It'd be fantastic. So
yeah. Thank you so much. Let's see, so many good questions. You guys are great. I've definitely seen a lot of questions around. I know, Nathan, you mentioned early on Aptera in Europe. Just wanted to re-emphasize for everyone, we absolutely are committed to doing everything we can to bring Aptera to Europe. We are aware that there are some, challenges in some areas regarding width, but we're definitely working on those. And so, for those of you that have been asking in the chat, regarding bringing Aptera to Europe, we're definitely working on that, and we absolutely want that to happen. We have a ton of reservation holders from Europe, and we are committed to working with you guys and doing everything we can to bring you Aptera to Europe. So wanted to answer that question right off the bat. Let's see. Can we talk? You talked a little bit about battery. I think we've got some questions around like sizing of pack and how is it possible to add battery weight without affecting the efficiency and the aerodynamics. So is there anything you want to share a little bit related to batteries and how batteries and additional battery packs might impact our aerodynamic ability?
Well, first and foremost, all the batteries are always placed in the belly band of the vehicle, biased forwards, obviously, right? So we're trying to get as much weight forwards as we can. So the battery pack sits under the floor, and we don't have the luxury of like a regular EV having a flat floor, obviously. So our battery pack is quite interesting. It's basically made up of a form that fits inside the center tunnel, comes out under the belly pan, and then comes around on an arc at the bottom. And these stack up in one big brick, and that whole thing goes up under the belly pan. So we're maximizing that whole volume under the floor as efficiently as possible. So it's not a normal looking battery pack. It definitely is a very strange looking pack. But we were able to cram that whole belly pan just full of batteries. And then as we increase the size of the batteries, we're only adding more weight to the same area. So we're not adding packs anywhere that's going to throw the weight off, right? So as the battery pack increases, it increases the weight, but it doesn't decrease safety or stability.
Great, thank you so much. One thing I know that we are working on, and it's again one of those things that I don't think we have absolutely made a decision on. Can you give us an update on the side cameras?
We're still working on them. Like it's still, I believe, the production intent to have cameras. I've seen a few production cars with them. I think the Polestar and a few production cars that have cameras. So I believe regulation-wise, we're allowed to do it now. I got to double check on this one. But when we first launched the car, it was illegal to have cameras as rearview mirrors. And I believe that's changed now. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there may actually be some challenges. I think we're, potentially working through some challenges. I don't think we know anything yet, but I think we can share more. But to my knowledge, I think that is something that we're working on. I didn't know if you had any more details on that. So
obviously, it's an aerodynamic gain if we can go to cameras. A huge aerodynamic gain. So definitely that's the desired route.
Yep. That's great. Okay, let's see. A couple of questions around, and this is less aerodynamics and more just, I think, the composite body, but, are there specific jacking points around the vehicle? How would you change a flat tire? How will that work with the composite body structure?
Yep, so we've got 4 primary jacking points under the vehicle. That are used during the vehicle construction and for mounting the battery and for mounting the belly pan and for jacking points for the client. So we've got 4 hard points underneath the vehicle, but you can jack the vehicle from on the back of the vehicle. We have a big plenum that comes down, a big composite plenum. That is our rear bumper and also an air chamber that removes air from the battery compartment, takes it through the plenum and dumps it out the back under the skirt. That whole piece you can jack on as well. You put a jack around that thing, lift the whole car. There's only 600 or 700 pounds on the back of the vehicle, so 2 big guys could lift the back up, no problem. And then the front row jacking points for the front, so that's all been considered, and yeah, should be fine. We should be able to put it on a standard shop lift. That's kind of the goal, right? So.
Okay, another question, 2 wheels versus 3 wheels. Can you talk about stability, control, impact on aerodynamics? We have all-wheel drive, which is amazing, but you can also have 2-wheel drive. So can you talk a little bit about, there's some questions around kind of the difference and how that might impact performance?
I mean, fundamentally, it's rolling resistance was a part of it. That's a very big drag loss on vehicles. So going to 3 wheels, obviously you have a quarter less rolling resistance, right? So that was one big aspect of doing 3 wheels. Obviously for a a vehicle that was intended to demonstrate like an extreme, which is kind of what this vehicle was. It was demonstrated. It was designed to kind of be like this is as far as we can take it, right? This is as far as we can take practically a super efficient design. And then once we establish this kind of milestone, we build from there, and we come up with like the less radical vehicles using the same lightweight, super aerodynamic kind of philosophies. But this vehicle really is a statement vehicle. So on this vehicle, we wanted to make it as efficient as possible. And that was really the drive of the three wheels, was it's just a little bit more efficient than four wheels. With four wheels, because they line up, the aerodynamic drag between the wheels isn't that great. So actually, like the front wheel kind of shadows the rear wheel. So you don't take much of a hit there, but rolling loss, you take quite a big hit. So again, this vehicle that's why it's called the Paradigm, right? That's such a fantastic name you came up with there, Sarah. But wonderful. But it really is what it represents. It represents a paradigm shift in thinking and demonstrating what like a vehicle can be. Right?
Yeah, I mean, when you start with efficiency, I think what we're showing is that anything is possible, and it's really exciting to hear from you and hear all of these advancements. I do have a couple more questions, so I'm going to keep going for the next 15 minutes at least. So this is a good question. It's kind of a forward-thinking question, and I think there are some people saying, this is all great, but you guys, there's got to be some challenges. You have this huge goal of, bringing these vehicles to market. You want to bring vehicles to market by the end of the year. So, what does the Aptera CTO group and Aptera in general really need the most at this time? So I can certainly answer that from my marketing perspective, but what do you need, Nathan? Like, is there anything that the group that's on, we have hundreds of people, 563 people on this call right now who would probably be excited to help. So is there anything that they can do aside from getting out there and, sharing about Aptera and helping us to kind of start our movement? Any thoughts on that from your perspective? More HR resources, they suggested. We are going to be growing our team significantly over the year.
Yeah. Well, I have noticed, after doing a few of these kind of podcast things, that the questions are actually technically very astute. And a lot of good points are being raised. And obviously a lot of people, interested in the project that have aeronautical engineering, aerodynamic backgrounds, and a lot of really good suggestions keep coming up, right? So, I mean, if there's a way that we could capture those suggestions and then give the folks, reward for their suggestions, I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, why not employ the minds of 2,000 people if you can, right? I mean, right? So just on this chat now, there's so many good ideas popped up. I was like, goodness, I mean, if we can get people just suggesting things that they can think of that would, from an engineering perspective, help, I would be very interested in that. And of course, if you want to put your grubbies on and come out and, make some cars, I mean, that would be the other thing too. So.
Well, we have lots of volunteers for test drives I've been seeing who have popped in the chat here. So that is something, as we have more development vehicles and more marketing vehicles available, we will be doing events in specific markets. We will be doing meet and greets. We'll hopefully be doing some test drives. So, as we have more of have Seoul coming to down to San Diego soon. So we'll have our second vehicle ready. And as that happens, we'll definitely have more opportunities for all of you out there to get an up close and personal view of Aptera. So that will certainly happen. Lots of volunteers that I've seen popping up here. Okay, let's see. There's a little bit of a discussion happening here around polycarbonates versus glass, and a little bit like no glass, all glass. What about polycarbonate? So anything you want, a little bit of a debate happening in the chat. Any light that you can shed on this?
Yeah, so polycarbonate typically isn't a great material. It yellows and hazes, and it actually isn't approved for automotive. As far as I know, I believe automotive has to be glass. And like I said before, because we're autocycle, we have the opportunity to use polycarbonate if it's a good production solution. So we're working with a couple of companies now that have a protective film that goes over the polycarbonate that supposedly gives it scratch resistance, UV resistance, and makes it a decent kind of product that's going to last. We still have to investigate that. But if it's true and the testing works out, then we'll be saving quite a bit of weight, especially on the rear hatch glass, because that's a large piece of glass. So, yeah.
Okay, so with three wheels, it's difficult to miss obstacles. So how is it possible for people to absorb potholes? Will the tires have enough sidewall to avoid debris?
Yeah, no, we're not going with a very low sidewall. We're going with a reasonably sized sidewall so that we can take impacts. The rear suspension is very robust. So mechanically it can take anything. And then the skirt area, we've actually designed the front of the skirt and the rear of the skirt have a replaceable bumper. So it's going to be like a molded foam or some kind of sacrificial element. So if you do hit a really good pothole with a rear skirt and you bash the skirt, it's just going to be a matter of taking the front piece off and changing that front piece. So
okay, we're moving fast and furious here. Two questions regarding suspension. So will the suspension system have a dynamic camber for banking and turns?
Don't I wish? No, not at this point. No, it's standard. I mean, it's long wishbone front suspension, so it does kind of get more into like Formula One style geometries. And we got fairly nice. We got our suspension's great. We got great camber game, we got great scrub. Like everything's really nice from the geometry of the front suspension wise. You can see on the picture behind you, we've got the double lower A-arm. So at that time, we had to go to a virtual lower ball joint, because you couldn't package the ball joint inside the motor. That's been changed now, so we can go to a traditional lower A-arm. So we're making advancements in the suspension, and there was a question there about the wires hanging down as well, and that's just very early prototype stuff. The next vehicle, all those wires are tucked up into the airfoil. Everything's all tucked up, so it's not creating any drag.
So are those metal suspension parts cast or 3D printed?
Oh my goodness, we tried to 3D print them. We really tried. The state of the industry on large-scale metal 3D printing is still almost prohibitively expensive. Like it works, but oh my goodness, the cost is outrageous. It's outrageous. So at this point, we're sandcasting and then doing traditional kind of post-machining. We've got tubular structures we're investigating, and then just billet machine structures that we have as well. So we're just going through kind of how we work out what it's going to be at the end. So, but yeah, it'll be traditional, cast aluminum stuff.
Okay. So this is like a bigger question. Why do you think there is a near vacuum in America for efficient all-electric vehicles? That's what we do. Why aren't there more companies?
We've been saying this for years, haven't we? We've been saying this for years. Like, why is nobody else realize yet that there's like such a huge net gain to be made in efficiency? Like huge. Like the cars we're driving now are outrageously inefficient. I mean, you can look at history. You can just look at like how cycles work, right? Like if you get a job at a car company, you inherit a platform, you're going to do a redesign. The reason cars keep getting bigger is because each engineering team is harder to make the car smaller, but it's easier to just keep adding to it. So as cars evolve, they continue to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we seem to have gotten in a vicious cycle where we're not able to kind of like rethink why we're doing things and kind of pause for a second and just kind of stop and look at why we're doing things the way that we're doing it. And that really, to me, was what Aptera was when Steve and Chris first came out with this thing. It was a demonstration of just how kind of old-fashioned like the rest of the industry thinking is, right? When you look at it from like an aeronautical perspective, Steve was a pilot, right? So he comes at it from an aeronautical kind of perspective, thinking about airplanes, how airplanes work. Chris came at it from a composites perspective, thinking about how you build composite stuff. And when they came together, I mean, it was just dynamite. And I think, me personally, it opened my mind to what was possible. And, I think with this vehicle, we're going to open more minds to what's possible and hopefully maybe fill this vacuum a bit, right? Because people don't know what they don't know. They don't know that it's possible to have a vehicle that's half the weight, 10 times better aerodynamically and 10 times safer than what they're driving now. And one thing we haven't talked about yet is how beautiful it is, right? Like this is something that until you see the vehicle in person, you really don't understand how breathtakingly beautiful this car is, right? So we're actually designing for like a more attractive, more beautiful future, at the same time more intelligent use of materials, more intelligent use of batteries, everything, right? I'm excited for people to see this car in person too, because it really is, it takes your breath away the first time you see it.
Yep. And we have some comments here saying, sadly, efficiency, until there's an economic incentive in place, to push people towards efficiency, that's going to continue to be a challenge. So there were a couple questions around incentives, and, obviously Aptera being an auto cycle, we are working on incentives. We actually have a lobbying team that we're working with at DC. We have a group of our ambassadors who are also supporting our efforts in lobbying. So we are absolutely on the front lines of pushing legislation forward that we hope will benefit, the industry overall, make it easier for companies like Aptera to be able to come to market and be successful, and then also to make it easier for consumers to make those choices that, they know are going to be better for the planet. So there's a lot that's happening there that hopefully will drive that push towards efficiency as well. Okay, well, these are great questions.
Some good questions in here about upgrading the vehicle. If I can touch on that real quick, because that's something that we...
Please, yeah. And there were some questions around just like repairing. So I was going to add about right to repair. So yeah, please, let's talk about upgrading. Let's talk about what happens if you live in a remote part of the world and you have Aptera and you need a part. How will we make this exceptionally easy?
Exceptionally easy. I know, it's a big toy car. It's a big plastic toy car. Yes, so right to repair is something that we're very passionate about, right? We see the world going against right to repair, right? And we think that's absolutely the wrong way to go. We think people should be given the ability to upgrade, fix, tinker with, it's their car, right? And what we're seeing as well is that as electric vehicle technology improves, it becomes simpler, and it just gets simpler and simpler and simpler to the point where parts get combined, more parts get combined, and you've really only got 3 or 4 major components for your entire drive system for your vehicle. So it becomes something that, apart from the high voltage aspect, becomes a very easy system to work on. So if you manage the high voltage aspect in a way that is safe, then you can basically allow people to fix their own car, right? Obviously, when we're getting into batteries and stuff, that's a really scary area when we talk about this kind of stuff. But if you want to replace a door latch, or you get a ding on your door, you want to change your door, we don't see any reason why, with basic hand tools, like with, I think it's 3 wrenches and 6 Allen keys, we can take apart the whole car. Then why not give people the ability to work on their own car and make their own changes if they wanted to? This whole COVID thing has really kind of changed the market for why and what we make. And it seems that there's a lot more desire for people to, what they do own, for that thing to be special and to be handmade and to be dedicated to them and custom to them kind of thing. We want to try and convey that feeling in these vehicles. We want to give people the feeling it's a handmade vehicle, and they had a hand in how it was designed and built for them, right? So we want to just open the door for people to kind of go wild, right? Do whatever they want. Let's have some fun with this thing. So yeah, right to repair is a big one. Obviously, we've got a kind of similar model to Tesla with the roving repair vans kind of thing. Yeah, right to repair is very important for us. Thinking about it now just out loud, the high voltage stuff is kind of scary. That's just thinking about it now. Tesla's have some very interesting things, like on the charge plug of their vehicle, we found there's a micro switch on the back that if you take that off, the micro switch disconnects and the whole high voltage system shuts down on the vehicle. So if you tinker with anything on the high voltage, it all shuts down. They've made it very, very safe that we've done some fantastic work on those cars. So we're gonna have to do similar kind of a thing, but yeah. And again, that's how the future is going to be. We learned the other day that Volvo is talking about closing down all of their dealerships. So if car companies start closing down dealerships, this kind of right to repair and service is going to become normal, right? So it's just a bit ahead of a time again, I think. But
okay. Well, we have just a couple minutes left, so just a couple questions. I would love to give people an example. There are some questions. Gosh, you guys keep talking about efficiency. Aptera is so efficient. How does that compare? We won't name any names, but how does Aptera compare to other vehicles on the road? How much more efficient is Aptera?
Yeah, well, my favorite one is the same drag as the windshield wipers on a pickup truck. Just the windshield wipers. Just those 2 blades is the same drag that we have. So yeah, the net gain
Frameless
in
wipers?
efficiency is extraordinary. It's orders of magnitude. And anybody who's put their hand out of a car window at speed, right, can attest how much force is on a car at speed. And if you look at the CD numbers of vehicles, where we come in the list, we're the last vehicle on Wikipedia before you get into like the speed record cars and the eco car marathon cars. Like we're the last one on the production car list on the CD. So we're as efficient as you can get while still having two people packaged safely, like I said, right? So no, it's a paradigm shift. When people realize how efficient this car is and how much energy it doesn't use, yeah.
Okay, great. So just a couple more questions, and I know we have so many questions, guys, between the chat and the Q&A. So we want to make sure we get to them all. If we don't, you can always email us. We'll also take a look at the chat and see if we can reach out to you guys directly. So I apologize if we didn't get to all your questions, but they're awesome, and we're so grateful for all of your participation, making this a great webinar. So last question. What is the future hold for Aptera? So Aptera is our first vehicle. We envision a line of vehicles that are solar efficient vehicles that have, all things in common. They are lightweight. They have, super efficient powertrains, extremely aerodynamic. So what's next? We've got this amazing vehicle that we will bring to market by the end of the year is our goal. But, what do you see? Will there be more seats? Will there, where do we go from here?
No, I know. There's so many options. It's just exciting. The next vehicle is a four-wheeled version, right? So more of a standard kind of a car package, but still using the same obviously principles of lightweight and aerodynamics. If you search Aptera online, there's actually a render of a four-wheeler that we did. I think Jason Hill did that one 5-10 years ago, kind of thing, and it's still a beautiful, beautiful design. And something we could definitely go along the lines of that kind of thing. So we're looking to see how much of this initial vehicle we can carry over into the next one mechanically. We're a big fan of not changing things for the sake of changing things. So if we can have the same parts through all our vehicles, and getting the same part means just one part number, then that's what we'll do. But the four-wheel vehicle is going to be a beautiful challenge, right? Because to package a regular vehicle but use the principles that we have at Aptera, it's going to result in a fantastic vehicle as well. But this one is what's going to set the stage, right? That's what this one is for. It sets the limit of what we can do, and then from here we just keep building on it. So.
That's great. Okay, well, I'm just going to mention a couple last things before we go. Thanks for all the positive feedback. You guys are so nice. I'm glad that you enjoyed the webinar, and I'm glad that we were able to give you some new and exciting things that are happening. We're working really hard. We have a lot going on at Aptera, and we're making a ton of progress. And so we're thankful that you guys can all be along with us as part of this amazing journey that we're all on together. We really do feel like you guys are part of our family. I want to thank all of our ambassadors who work, tirelessly out there, on social media, making sure that the right information is getting out there and, sharing about Aptera. So if you have interest in joining our ambassador program, we would love to have you. You can email us at info@aptera.us. Also, we do have, if your questions didn't get answered, we have a really super detailed FAQ that we can send out later and post. It's an Excel kind of Google sheet, and you can search through it. And so if you didn't get your question answered, I'm pretty sure it's probably on that list. So you guys can take a look at that. As well. And also a lot of people asking about investment opportunities. And I know I did mention it at the beginning. We absolutely do intend to be opening up another round of investment over the next couple months. And that will not be on a traditional crowdfunding platform like WeFunder as it was in the past, but it will actually be through our own website. And we will post that on social media. We'll send out emails. I promise you guys will know when that happens. And our intent is that everyone can be able to be a part of that and be a part of the journey of Aptera. And then lastly, we will be posting this on, I think maybe YouTube would be great. We're going to be recording these. And then in the future, these are all going to be integrated into our Aptera website, into our customer area. So you guys can go back and I wondered about aerodynamics. What did Nathan mention that? So you can go back and watch these, and we'll start to have kind of a history of all these. So I hope you like these. We want to give you guys really good stuff. We want to be accessible, and we want to give you as much information as we can and be as transparent as we can. So We appreciate you, Nathan. You're amazing. This guy worked on the space station, and now, of course, it's so fitting that he's an engineer also on Aptera. So we're so thankful to have you, such an amazing talent and so much knowledge. And thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Joanna, happy to be part of this team, and everybody too. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I'm happy the word's getting out there about this remarkable vehicle and what we're trying to do here. So fantastic.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care.